So for a quick introduction to Base, for those who aren't familiar with us, we're based in Perth in Western Australia, listed in Australia and on AIM. We started with the Kwale Operation in Kenya, commissioned that in late 2013, and it's been a very successful operation that we then wanted to capitalise on by then stretching out into a second operation and acquired the Toliara Project in Madagascar early 2018 after a pretty exhaustive search around the mineral sand space, and really we see it as just an absolute standout. So the foundation of our business is the Kwale Operation. For those of you who've been following us, you know that it's an incredibly consistent, predictable operation. We don't get any gyrations in production, and it's an incredibly safe, highly effective operation. In the entire life of the operation, we've got about 1,000 people on site, and we've had 2 lost time injuries in the 27 odd million man hours. So it's a pretty good window in on the safety performance and the performance culture. We started mining in the Central Dune when we first started. We've now been in the South Dune for a number of years. That's where we are right now, and we're heading towards the toe of that. Incredibly strong environment for mineral sands. It's a great time to be a mineral sands producer. Very tight market. Supply is constrained. There's not a lot of new supply on the horizon, and it's actually driving some interesting behaviour from customers in terms of trying to put their foot on large volumes of new supply, which has set us up quite well in terms of how we go about financing the Toliara project. That sort of backdrop of price has enabled us to generate a lot of cash over the last few years. We, rather than a dividend policy, we have a capital management approach that is basically, if we don't have a clear line of sight to a need to deploy that cash, so a line of sight to an FID on Toliara, we take the view that it's best that we return the cash to shareholders, not appropriate that we stockpile it. And so we've been strictly applying that since October 2020, and we've now returned some $117 million back to shareholders over 18 months. Once we do have line of sight on an FID, that tap could be expected to be turned off. So focus number 1 for us is on extending the mine life at Kwale. We have ore basically now through to the end of 2024 from the addition of a couple of satellite pits. We have the ability to extend that further from those pits if prices hold up where they are at the moment. But otherwise, we're very focused on the area to the east there, where you can see a couple of or a series of drill lines planned, where we've identified some interesting ore or interesting mineralisation through some community boreholes. Planning on getting in there over the course of this year. Currently working with the community to get access and support, and we're doing quite well in those efforts. Looking further afield, we are exploring for other opportunities within East Africa, particularly in Kenya, but stretching out across the border into Tanzania. The area of most immediate interest is the one on the left. We call it Karanze. We've got a number of applications in for tenure in Kenya. We've had a number of them in Tanzania already granted, so we're now doing groundwork there with sort of shallow auger programs and some deeper pits to understand what it is we're looking at there. But very interesting area for rutile. We're testing the hypothesis that it's the original source of the rutile we now see in the dunes down where we are at the Kwale Operation. So pretty excited to get in there. It's been delayed a bit by virtue of a moratorium on the issuance of new licences in Kenya while they cleaned up some governance issues with the cadastre. We're told that that's a matter of weeks away from being lifted, and then we'll be able to get on with some further exploration work. Which brings us to Toliara. As I said, we looked at a lot of projects before we decided this was the way we wanted to go. All the work we've done on it since has A, reinforced our view, and B, increased the view on value. We released the second DFS late last year, which increased the scale of the project. We'd always anticipated doing a second stage scale up in operating year 4. We've now taken that through to DFS standard. We did update for the capital cost increase that everyone's seen in inputs in major projects. But it's also underpinned by an even more sort of robust outlook for mineral sands, the appetite we're seeing from downstream customers to lock in long-term offtake, and the growth in the resource. All meant that it made sense for us to really go after a bigger project. It's increased the NPV up to a bit over $1 billion US. The RC ratio on this, revenue to cash cost, is about 3.5. We're going to see the best part of $6 billion free cash flow over a 38-year mine life. And in the first 10 years, we're looking at free cash flow of over 200 million US. So it's a pretty exciting project that still has room to grow in value. So that project, 38 years, is based on an ore reserve of 900 million tonnes out of a resource of 2.6 billion tonnes. So we've still got a lot of conversion to do from that resource. We also haven't yet included in that resource that lower sandy unit that's shown in that greeny colour there. So there's a lot of growth to come in the size of that resource. But also qualitatively. So we've been putting some holes out to the west of the understood envelope that we acquired and hit some absolutely spectacular grades and thicknesses. So you're talking about mid-teens over 60 to 80 metres from surface. Now, about a third of that grade is garnet. So that's a market we're going to need to understand when we get to the point of being able to mine that lower sandy unit. So there's some value to come from that. But the other quite exciting aspect is that the HM, or the heavy mineral in our deposit, contains about 2% monazite. So with the production level where we're going to be running at, which is around 1 million tonnes of ilmenite a year, we'll produce somewhere between 20 and 23,000 tonnes a year of monazite. Now, that hasn't been factored into the economics of the project at all yet. We've just kicked off a concept study to better understand that market and the pathway for us to realise that value. But we have done some test work to understand the rare earth oxide potential of that monazite, and it produces a pretty attractive basket of rare earth oxides. So the plan is to get that completed over the next 9 months. So we should have that done by the end of the year. So the key to the timeline around Toliara is agreeing fiscal terms with the government of Madagascar. We're very close to that now. The proposal we have in front of the government, which is supported by the President's advisors, was used as the basis for the DFS2, so that's all now built in. Now, assuming we can get fiscal terms landed in the next couple of months, we have about 11 months of work to do to get to an FID, which would take us out to around June 2023. 26-month construction and commissioning period, which would then see shipments heading out in the third quarter of 2025. So critical, massive step for us is getting these fiscal terms landed. It's been quite the mission to get to that point. It's involved the government needing to get quite a bit of advice from the World Bank and the IMF to better understand what's possible and what makes sense for Madagascar. But we seem to be getting pretty close now, and all the stars seem to be aligning. So just quick sort of summary of what we're about. We've got a really established, profitable operation in Kwale. We've got a world-class development asset. We've got a long track record of excellence in all aspects of our business, and particularly in sustainability. Got a very experienced team. The team that brought Kwale into being is more or less intact, and we've got the capacity to execute another project really well. Very sound financial position. And the combination of the Toliara Project and our current cash flow means that we are creating a company of some real strategic relevance in the sector. So thank you very much.